T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. All three engines up and burning. 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Welcome to the Citizens of Tech. This is a show about technology and not just gadgets and apps, but all sorts of nerdy stuff. If we find it interesting, we think you will too. Here's how it works. We go through the internet feeds of ours, all this news and stuff that we think is cool and interesting, and we pick the very best stuff and throw it on Reddit. So go to the Citizens of Tech subreddit, find the articles we found, and then you upvote the stuff that you think is cool too. The stuff that's upvoted the most, we talk about, plus we throw in some bonus stuff that maybe didn't make it into the Reddit collection. I am Ethan Banks at EC Banks on Twitter. Eric Zutphen is with me. He is at Zutphen. And Eric, if you would, give us a rundown. What are we talking about today with the help of our loving subredditors?
Today we've got robots wearing your skin, the old man and the battery, rising from your grave, YouTube TV, Nokia 3310, the invincible phone is back, along with Privacy Watch, which is a new feature we have added to the mix, and content I like, and of course today I learned.
Awesome. And I got to tell you, I'm recording this from myself using my iPad because my iMac's busted, Eric. I'm very sad.
Oh, how the mighty have fallen.
So we had the super cold night here locally. We live in the same town. We both lost power overnight, and then it came back a few hours later. No big deal, but yeah. I came up to the office, and my iMac is just like, oh, it didn't start back up after the power came back. No problem. I'll hit the power button. It just ain't starting. So I'm going through the reset. In this case, it's a newer Mac, so it's an NVRAM. And now I'm going through safe mode booting, which is fairly dramatic, but not really achieving anything so far. Just a lot of flashy things on the screen with no results, and we'll see what happens.
I promise I'm doing something, Ethan.
And I'm just hoping this doesn't end up being a trip to the Genius Bar, because my iMac is one of the ones that's wall mounted, and it'll just be a pain. Just get better. I can't. You're not doing anything. Stop not doing. Oh, okay.
Get
Robots
better, little buddy.
Skin.
Get better.
Robots wearing your skin. So this gets into the science of a flesh grown on an artificial skeleton. And dig in, Eric. What is this all about?
Yeah, so robots are getting more and more lifelike, from artificial intelligence to the motion. The actuators and servos and things have advanced such that they make more realistic movements, and it looks more like a human. There's still that uncanny valley thing going on, and it's not 100% convincing at this point. But I guess if you stop and think about the Terminator movies, for instance, those robots had human skin and other tissues that, they got shot and you could see that the skin tore off.
Human flesh over metal endoskeleton. That.
It's not the tumor. Oh, wait, wrong movie. Right actor, wrong movie. Anyway, that's not what this is about at all, actually.
You said actor. Anyway.
Governor? The governator. So some researchers involved in tissue engineering, they currently grow tissues in a glorified fish tank, basically, full of nutrients and building block compounds. The tissues grow on a trellis so that they have a framework to grow on.
Right, okay. I've seen some like this before where they use certain shapes. They were using, I think we may have covered it on this show, fat tissue caul that can be used as a lattice work to, and then with the right cells, grow it into an organ that actually looks about the shape you'd need.
Right, like growing an ear or whatever.
Oh,
yeah,
right,
yeah. So, I mean, in a way, they describe it as a crude mechanism, but it sounds like science fiction in a way. Like, oh, we only grow it in a tank, and we grow these tissues, and they're not actually belonging to a person, but this is so crude, and like the future is now, right? That's wild.
You're
to me.
Growing tissues. Anyway, right.
Anyway, aside from that, these researchers want to improve the process by growing them inside a robotic body, basically.
A human analog style body.
Exactly. Like the similar measurements and, similar movements and things like this. And so why is the big question? And the answer to that is when your body builds or repairs tissues, it does so under the normal stresses of daily life, right? you work out, you go to CrossFit, Ethan. Your muscles get stronger because you're using them until they need repair, and then the body rebuilds the tissue with additional resilience. Likewise, bones, when they're growing, they do so under load, right? They don't just grow in zero gravity. They're bearing load as they grow and get longer. For instance, a child, right? They have growth plates in the bones. The bones are growing. It's doing that under load.
Right, yep.
So, additionally, when you break a bone and it heals, it actually heals, generally speaking, stronger than it was before, because the additional lattice work is around the break point.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's cool. Okay.
Generally speaking, it's actually stronger in that spot than it was before the break.
Come here, Eric. I want to make you stronger.
Yay! Don't hit me again, Ethan. So the idea here is to get superior, more durable tissue transplants by having them grow under stress, strain, and load so that they will be grown in the condition that they'll be used in the recipient's life. So, an Achilles tendon would be an example, right? You can synthetically grow a tendon, but it doesn't have all the stress and strain already applied to it. It's almost like when you build a bridge or other concrete structure, you have to build it with strain in mind.
Yes.
So that it doesn't collapse. If you're just growing a fish tank tendon, it's not going to be as good as one that was developed under stress.
So the real question here is, could these tissues that are being grown under this loaded state using this artificial robotic skeleton, could they remain in place on the skeleton and then be used at some point to animate the skeleton? I mean, it's a biological system on a metal or a plastic, whatever the system is. But if they're growing them and causing strain and loads that they have good, useful human characteristics, can they just stay on that frame and then, be energized in some way? Or do they have to be, are they strictly transplant material at this point?
It sounds like it absolutely could stay there. And then you could have a biological robot hybrid system in place, which sort of is like Terminator after all.
Little Terminator, little Frankenstein.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't animated this, unliving flesh. Well, it is biologically alive, but it is not a sentient being or anything like that.
Right.
We're just making parts, but in theory, it leads us down that path, it sounds like.
Yeah, very much so. And to take it a step further down that path, let's pose a hypothetical. What if, Ethan,
Oh, here we go.
we find a way to put human consciousness inside one of these bad boys? So, your consciousness is transferred into a computer, more or less, as an artificial intelligence, perhaps. Does that defeat death, do you think? Is that circumventing the death of your body because your consciousness would live on?
Well, if we assume that consciousness, what makes us sentient, our memories, our experiences that drive us to hold opinions and have a personality that's individual, if that can be digitized and moved in some way, who cares what the transport mechanism is? The meat bags we have are what they are. They're
limited
going to
shelf
age.
life.
We're beginning to understand aging. We're beginning to understand how the body breaks down over time, and there are some theories about how that may be prevented. But we're an awful long way, it seems, from being able to limit biologically our ultimate death. And sadly, it takes the brain with it, where we presume the seat of consciousness to be. We are just barely beginning to understand the brain and its functions.
Neural networking.
Neural networks, how neurons work, how memories are stored. But it seems very early on where the things that we can do are things like, well, we know there's electricity involved, and so we can monitor the brain when certain activities are. Look, that part of the brain lit up when he did that thing, so that must mean that part of the brain does this, and so on. And yet there are things we don't understand, like you can live without one of the hemispheres in your head. What?
Who knew?
Yeah, and so on. So there's a lot of things as yet unknown. But if we can figure that out, understand the biological storage involved, presumably get it digitized and move to a different system, I wouldn't have any problem with that.
You'd do it?
Oh, yeah. I would definitely do it. Thinking about it from a nerd tech standpoint, I suppose there's moral, religious questions that pop up. There's a significant propensity of the global population that would believe in a soul and may assign significance
the personhood of the person to said soul
to the body,
right.
And what happens if you move your consciousness over, and so that's a question for philosophers to debate, not me. But from a technology perspective, if I could do it, sure. Yeah. Now I will say there's one. You tell me what you think about this objection that pops in my head. But the thing that I think of is, well, all right. So let's say everybody could do this. We don't die. We already have a population concern. So, is Earth as a planet, or would we be able to sustain all of the people, I guess we'll just call it people, that could live in perpetuity?
My take on that is, if I were to do this, and yes, I've given this some thought before, if I were to do this, I'd want to explore the galaxy. I don't necessarily want to hang around on Earth, right? If I can go out and see other stuff out there in the universe and experience other things, when you get to the point where you can have your consciousness put into a robotic or hybrid body of some sort, I think you're probably at the point where personal space travel may not be quite as far-fetched as it seems at this moment. But if we're already talking about transferring consciousness into some sort of an artificial intelligence or what have you, and then into a robotic body or a hybrid robotic body, I think, Earth may not be the only planet that we are part of by the time that technology comes around.
Well, it's interesting you put it that way. I want to explore the galaxy because you could have custom-made body styles that are fit for purpose. Mm-hmm. So I don't think having any sort of biological dependence would be wise for exploring the galaxy, right?
Correct.
In theory, you'd want to be
fully digital.
Fully digital, all metal,
solar powered or nuclear powered or whatever. Yeah,
and and something beyond what like my poor Mac is, where someone pulls the plug and all of a sudden it can't boot again. Grr.
Ethan, can you push Option Shift PR on me, please? Because I'm in a boot loop. I guess I just posed this question to you. I just sort of shared my response to it. I guess let's throw this to our listeners at this point. Maybe you guys want to chime in, send us a tweet, an email, comment on the Citizens of Tech subreddit. Would you do this if it were possible to transfer your consciousness into a robot body of some sort, whether that's one of these meat bag hybrid robot bodies or what have you.
And you got to justify it.
Yeah.
Give us a good reason why. Because I'm still sitting here thinking about the how horrible it is to die and have your 80 years worth of experience and wisdom
gone,
just disappeared. Because all life experiences build one upon another, upon another, upon another. And based on those experiences, we make different decisions. I think about things differently now in my 40s than I did in my teens.
And
or
5 years ago even. Yeah.
Imagine if, that could continue on. Anyway, we would love to hear from you, you listeners, about this with some thoughtful responses. If anyone can take the time, we'll read the good ones.
Definitely.
And share it.
Definitely.
Have some more conversation.
Well, speaking of aging, let's move on to The Old Man and the Battery.
The Old Man and the Battery, yes.
Is this a novel?
So this comes to us from electrek.co. They reported on Professor John Goodenough, the co-inventor of lithium-ion battery cells. He's got a team working at an engineering school, and they've got some battery breakthroughs. Now, we talk about battery and energy breakthroughs. There's always something, but we try to limit it to the things that seem real. And this is one of those that seems real. John Goodenough, again, co-inventor of the lithium-ion battery cells. This is a guy that's been around this technology for a very long time, has been working on solid-state batteries, which are presumably safer than lithium-ion and higher energy density. You can store a lot more for the same volume.
We should point out he's 94 years old.
He is an old dude,
Hence
for
the
sure.
title. Yeah,
and is still like busting out new inventions. At 94,
he's sharp. Yeah.
Presumably, I'll be dead by then. Probably will have been for a while.
Statistically speaking, unless you're in a robot body, yes.
Exactly.
But anyway.
He's a robot.
He is, I'm pretty sure.
That may be.
Powered by solid-state batteries.
Well, okay, there's been a lot of investments in solid-state battery technology. Nothing has come to market yet because we've had tricky issues with life cycle management. In other words, the cycling of the batteries in its charge and discharge states.
Yep.
And the expense, just the costly to make these solid-state batteries. It's got to be affordable, and it's got to last once it's on the market. And that is really where these breakthroughs are. So Goodenough and his team have announced some breakthroughs to address the life cycle and cost concerns. And he's targeting battery-driven cars as a major use case for the solid-state battery tech. He seems to believe that battery tech has got to improve to drive ahead e-vehicle adoption, which is interesting. I mean, I guess a lot of the e-vehicles that we've talked about in this show, Eric, they're almost all compromises in some way or another. There's a weight compromise, there's a length compromise, there's a long time to charge compromise. They're workable solutions, but like your Volt is in a sense a compromise because it's got the internal combustion engine that gives you the range and so on. Everything's still a compromise. So he's really aiming for the sort of battery that can drive ahead full e-vehicle adoption across the consumer space. And so what they've done here, they've created a new glass electrolyte and a solid-state cell that is using it. And to quote the article, the glass electrolytes allow for the substitution of low-cost sodium for lithium, and sodium is extracted from seawater that is widely available. So you weren't able to use sodium before. Now you can, and you can get it in
one of the most abundant natural resources. Yeah,
and not a lot of cost to get it from the seawater either. And so they're claiming with this new glass electrolyte and usage of sodium, 3x storage capacity compared to a lithium ion of the same size. And they've done testing with this initial cell of over 1,200 cycles, 1,200 cycles of charge up and discharge.
Wow.
And this thing also operates from pretty cold temps, minus 20 C, to plus 60 C. So that's
a pretty good operating range.
It's pretty good. I wish it was a little colder, but...
Yeah, I mean, it gets colder than that around these parts.
Occasionally.
As we can attest to just this past week.
Today, yes.
The really remarkable thing here is that not only is it a lower cost material, but that 3 times storage capacity.
The density is just awesome. Yeah. That is really awesome. So for a vehicle application, also stationary power applications as well. So like Tesla Powerwall comes to mind.
Yeah.
Also thinking about some of the batteries for like solar grid applications where you got lots for major industrial applications.
And then when you talk about automotive applications, there was some in the article, there was some statistic, I want to say it was a 60 kilowatt hour battery they can get under 200 kilograms, which is unheard of at this point. 200 kilograms doesn't get you a whole lot of kilowatt hours with current technology. That's why Teslas are heavy. The Volt is heavy.
Yeah.
Because the batteries just weigh so much. So if you can cram 3 times the amount of power into an equivalent amount of weight, then you're in a much better position.
Or get the weight down, which will improve not only vehicle performance, but should be, since you're motivating less weight, you should get, in theory, you would get more distance out of that as well.
With less need for hypermiling techniques to recover. If you're not spending additional energy to accelerate, you don't have to be as careful when decelerating to regen.
And it shouldn't be as hard on tires. Should be easier on
the roads.
Yeah,
even.
It's on the roads as well. So
yeah.
All of that is very positive, and they're working now towards mass production. Now, there was no time frame given in the article, but they're still in the testing phase. But that's the goal. It's like, okay, we're proving this. This is good stuff. Now what's it going to take to bring this to market?
And then the next step will be getting the Gigafactory overhauled to produce this technology, and these massive battery production facilities. And Tesla has made the Gigafactory to be current technology applicable, where they can modularly switch out from one technology to the other. So ostensibly, they should be able to switch to this technology if it does hold out.
And there's already tens of millions of dollars that have been invested in John Goodenough and the lab and the project. So, it sounds awful promising.
Yeah, it does.
It really sounds promising. So that's exciting. Eric, you found we've got an AMD CPU story. We talk an awful lot about Intel CPUs. We brought up AMD here and there, but they've always been kind of far enough behind to not matter. But I guess that's starting to change.
Yeah, to some degree anyway. We call this one Ryzen from your grave. AMD's Zen platform has finally arrived. They've actually renamed it to Ryzen. It's not Risen, but it's Ryzen. The new CPUs sport 8 cores and 16 threads, so they actually have hyperthreading now, essentially, except they can't call it that because that's an Intel trademark. They run in the mid 3 gigahertz range with a boost to about 4 gigahertz. This brings AMD into the modern age with dual-channel DDR4 memory, PCI Express x4 storage, and USB 3.1 Gen 2. Which has all been missing in the current AM3 platform. This is now the AM4 platform.
So this CPU's got the bus width, is what we're saying.
Yes, exactly. And it's also amazing value for money. It delivers 52% more instructions per clock cycle than the previous generation. The bottom line sort of is that bleeding-edge gamers that play at 1440p and 4K will probably still prefer Intel's top chips and obviously pay dearly for them. However, Ryzen excels at video, audio, mathematics, and 3D modeling applications. The more threads you can throw at this thing, the better the performance, especially with the 1800X, which is the current top-of-the-line model. It bests Intel's beastly 10-core, 25-megabyte cache, 140-watt, $1,700 i7 6950X, and it costs $499, which is less than a third the price.
Best at like across the board, are pretty universal, or like at certain things.
When it comes to video, audio, mathematics, and 3D modeling, especially 3D modeling, Blender rendering, and things like that, it soundly beats it in most of those applications, and the few that it does not, it narrowly loses out on.
Selling for $1,200 less than the Intel, and when it's doing it with 8 cores and 16 threads versus 10 cores and however many
and
threads on the
threads,
Intel
right?
side.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, the long and short is if you want a monster of a multitasking system that can game perfectly well, honestly, and you want to do it for short money, then this really is your processor line, and that's been AMD's bread and butter back when they were competitive.
Did you catch what the fab size was? Was it 14?
It's I want to say it's 16.
But that's an odd size.
It's either 16 or 14.
Yeah.
I forget at this point.
Interesting.
But they have moved into competitive range again, and
the energy use is going to be reasonable then as well if they've gotten it down that small.
Yeah,
so,
they're coming in 42 watts lower than Intel in some of these tests. Not always that dramatic, but it's amazing what they've been able to do with the new chipset. And as someone that not even 6 months ago switched from AMD finally to Intel, I'm sort of kicking myself.
I could have just hung on a little longer.
Yeah, but I doubted them because it's been so long since they were actually competitive.
You're still going to need an ecosystem of motherboards and so on to get around this chip, right? You're not going to be able to drop this chip into an Intel design motherboard.
Yeah, no, and you can't use the existing AM3 chipsets either. And that's actually been one of the biggest weak points about this launch is motherboard support. There's been a lot of BIOS issues and some stability issues and things like that, while manufacturers that are making these AM4 boards are working on updated BIOS to support some of the features, and there's been a lot of blue screens and things like that. I won't claim that it's been a beautiful, wonderful, streamlined release. There have been a lot of issues around it, but when you get to the benchmarks, what people are coming up with and seeing across the board has been very impressive for the price point. It doesn't beat it doesn't beat Intel in every category. If you're a gamer, you do get better performance from Intel. But if a difference is 10 or 20% and you're not, a competitive gamer, you're not in a gaming league, that's your job, or you're not a Twitch streamer or something, that's your job, then you just want to play some video games, this will be fine.
There's still the GPU issue to consider anyway. It's not all about the CPU.
GPU does factor into this, and the PCI Express lane numbers.
Yeah.
So you can saturate the PCI Express lanes on the CPU easier than the Intels. But the current line of video cards out there, most of them are not SLI enabled anyway, except for the very, very top end ones. So it's less of an issue for the mainstream gamer, or even the low end enthusiast, I guess. If you don't have the 1080 card or the new 1080 Ti, you don't really have to worry about saturating those lanes. So this is a solid release, and their lower end CPUs are going to be coming out. The 4-core 8-thread and the 6-core 12-thread will be coming out in the near future. They released the 8-core 16 threads first for the enthusiasts.
So a $500 chip is top of the line.
Yeah.
Isn't that scary?
Yeah.
Huh? You mean you're going to be able to spend less and get some phenomenal chips the way it sounds?
Yeah, basically it sounds like Intel's i5 release several years ago, where the i5 was kind of the break point where everyone went, this is really pretty good. Like, I don't really need a whole lot more than this. And so that sounds like it's coming down the pike pretty soon here.
Well, YouTube, Eric. YouTube. So YouTube for me for years has been the place where you go to watch crappy cat videos and, amateurs like me doing video work and look what I made, and you put it up there and it's terrible. And with the occasional bright spots,
Sure.
things like the honest trailer guys, over at Screen Junkies that are putting out, fun and interesting content that's well produced and well thought out. And we've talked about various channels on YouTube that we like as YouTube's come along. Well, YouTube's been trying to capitalize on that. And there's a couple of premium services here. One is YouTube Red. YouTube Red's been announced quite a bit in the YouTube client. If I'm watching on my phone or my iPad, they keep pumping up YouTube Red. You want it so much.
You could not be seeing ads right now.
If only you would give us $10 a month for the YouTube Red. Roar.
There's all this exclusive content that you don't care about, but it's exclusive.
It is exclusive. Yeah. You must watch it for $10 a month.
And so I've resisted because it's $10 a month. And honestly, the funny thing about YouTube ads, a lot of them are so clever, they're kind of entertaining to watch at least once. Anyway, and a lot of the other ones, some of them you have to sit for the typically 30 seconds.
Ad block.
And then the other ones you can, they're delivered over 30 seconds. You can't skip.
Right.
There's no way to skip.
I think they're doing away with those. I had read.
I had heard that. Yeah, I had heard that. Anyway, so YouTube Red was a thing, and then I saw this announcement for YouTube TV, and I was like, oh, they've just rebranded YouTube Red. Yeah, that's all it is. No, it's not. It's a very different thing. So we're talking about two distinct services here. YouTube Red, which we've mentioned, lets you download videos, watch original content, and stream ad-free. YouTube TV is something else, and what you're getting, it's more like a Hulu or a Sling TV, that sort of a service where you're getting a whole bunch of channels bundled in and getting content that way. And this YouTube TV is a bundle pack of 40 channels. It's costing $35 a month for these 40 channels. You also get 6 different accounts to log in with, meaning everybody in the family gets their own login account to YouTube TV.
That's pretty decent.
So what are the 40 channels? Well, here's a partial list that we pulled out of this article from Ars Technica. ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, MSNBC, Fox News, Fox Business, ESPN, USA, FX, Oxygen, Disney, Nat Geo, and drumroll, content from local television networks.
And the crowd goes wild.
So that's, of course, the big thing. Because, all these services have been bundled in other things before. But, ABC, the big national networks. But these are all U.S. networks. If you're not a U.S. Listener, you're based in Europe or wherever you're at, these are all U.S. channels that this bundle is being created for. And so content from local television networks is nice because you can watch local news and watch local weather. Those are big. It's a big deal, and you've been able to get them
in real time.
Yeah. You're getting the opportunity to watch things live, watch things time shifted, etc. So it's really kind of mirroring the modern way people are beginning to consume content as more and more people cut the cord and they shift away from cable networks and from satellite networks like I did 3 or so years ago, and you did a long time ago too, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Now, what's interesting about this is if you are a YouTube TV customer, You do not get you do get the YouTube Red original content, but you do not get ad-free.
So you still need YouTube Red if you don't want ads.
So you'd still have to buy YouTube Red if you want to have the ad-free experience, which would bump you up to $45 a month. Now, premium channels like Showtime, movie channels and so on. It didn't say I didn't get a comprehensive list, but it's going to be more. Yeah, it's going to be yet another level up. You do get what they call the cloud DVR system, which is magical. At first, I was like, well, that's stupid because they're just all time-shifted content. You press a button and stream it. So who needs a DVR service? But then it's like, well, wait a minute. Because you're getting the live, like, local content channels. You know, that means you still have a way with YouTube TV to time-shift the weather and the local news and whatever else you're watching off of your local live stream channels. So that is cool. And they charge you nothing for storage, and there's no limit on the storage.
Unlimited storage, and it stays for 9 months.
So that really gives you a full-fledged system, and if you're cutting the cord, this might look like a very attractive option because it's very similar to what you've already got,
right,
for a pretty attractive price, because you were probably paying $90, $100, $120, if you were really crazy, $150 or $200 a month for a full boatload of channels,
300 plus channels or whatever,
with nothing to watch. But yes,
this is interesting to me because for the past couple of years, YouTube has been lobbying against data caps and quality of connections to try to make sure that people had good connections and all that. And now the pieces are sort of coming together. It's like, oh yeah, that's because they were launching essentially their own cable company.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I cord cut. I've been cord cut for a long time. So I thought this would be a good chance for us to actually catch up on the channels that we're watching and streaming, what the home experience is like. So first of all, if you're interested in YouTube TV, it's not available yet, but you can. It's coming soon. You sign up at tv.youtube.com, and you'll be notified just as soon as it's available. All they want is like an email address and your zip code, and they'll let you know. And I'm assuming what that is all about is integrating the local channel packages.
I would assume so.
I mean, because why else would they? I mean, all the rest of this content is ready to go for distribution. All these other networks are integrated in that world. So this has got to be giving you.
Yeah. Are you in Boston? Are you in LA?
Exactly,
are you in Austin, Texas?
So tv.youtube.com. But I got to tell you, okay, so I want to review what you're watching, Eric, because with what I'm watching, this is not tempting to me at all. I'm not interested in this package. Not that I don't think it's a bad deal or I think it's going to be a bad product. I think it's going to be right for a lot of people.
Sure.
But I'm not one of them. I'm watching still Amazon Prime, which has a ton of original content, most of which is absolutely excellent. Mm-hmm. I am watching, I have a subscription. So Prime Video, that library comes with my Prime membership anyway that I have as an Amazon shopper.
That you would have if you didn't watch the video.
So in a sense, I'm not paying anything for Amazon Prime, although if we want to get a little more realistic about it, it's roughly, call it $10 a month or $9 a month, something like that.
Yep.
For a lot of good stuff, including a lot of original content, and they keep cranking out more original content.
Fantastic content.
HBO Now, that is $15 a month, and there's a huge library of movies and a huge library of HBO original content, including a lot of documentaries. Absolutely fabulous.
Comedy, documentaries, kids programming even.
Sesame Street, for example. I mean, high-quality stuff. Lots of it there. That is the priciest channel I subscribe to. I wish it was more like $10 a month. It's $15, but I use it.
It's worth it.
I'm happy with it, yeah. Another thing I use that is completely free is Red Bull TV. Now, Red Bull TV, you're like, what the heck is that? They cover sports of all kinds. Most of it is the quote extreme, the nerds on skateboards and stuff. But they've also got a lot of shows that are not that, 18 and 20-year-old punks with their hats on backwards doing stupid things involving, graffitied walls. It's not that. There is that, but that's not all it is. There's a series I've been watching called Explorers where people will kayak down a river that's never been kayaked before, and the only way you can get into the canyon is with a few special insertion points. And once you're in, you're done, and they're going to go down this thing in their kayaks, and they scouted it out with a helicopter and with drones to have some sense of what the heck they were doing.
Wow.
And there's a whole season of these sorts of epic adventures that are shot in HD, so you get this stunning photography. So if you're an outdoors person, there's a lot to watch on Red Bull TV that is sort of, adventuring, I think I would say, with a healthy dose of lifestyle and extreme sports mixed in. And
Is that a Roku channel?
yeah,
Okay.
it's a Roku channel. That's how I watch
I'm
it.
going to have to check it out because that sounds really cool.
Yeah,
Sounds like anything Red Bull sponsors, which they sponsor all kinds of things,
Is on
could
there.
show up on there.
And it includes
like
World
rally racing? Yeah,
It includes
because they-
World Rally Cup.
Yep.
So World Rally Cup is easily my favorite auto racing. That and F1. F1's not on there, but what World Rally Cup is, and it is fabulous. The coverage is great. So I've watched the first 2 rallies of the season here in 2017. And the next one's going to be Mexico. So I watched Rally Sweden and Rally Monte Carlo. So Red Bull TV is great.
Yep.
I have a subscription to Kello, QELLO, which is the music concert channel. That's like $5 a month or something like that. And you get access to this huge library of music-related documentaries and performances and so on. And that's plenty. That's way more than enough. I don't even watch all of those. And then there's other free stuff like CNET, the Twit Network, PBS, tons of stuff on PBS. You can subscribe to PBS and get access to even more, but as a free level subscriber, you get access to tons of stuff. Masterpiece, Nova, Nature, and so several science channels and so on. And the PBS channel is great. I'm not tempted by anything else because what I'm watching is so good and so epic. It's like, and
there's more than enough.
I have enough to rot my brain for hours every night if I watch. Usually I've cut back lately. It's down to like an hour a night, if anything. I've been reading a lot more. And why do I want ABC and CBS and NBC and MSNBC and all the rest of it? I don't watch news. I catch my news on Reddit or Twitter.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What are you watching?
Basically, most of the things you mentioned, Amazon Prime, a lot of Roku stations. We do use HBO Go. We watch PBS on the Roku. I had not heard of Red Bull, but it sounds like I'll be checking that out. Kello, is that how you?
QELLO.
Yeah, Kello sounds cool. I might even check that out. We do watch Acorn TV, which is British television.
That's like a channel you can get separate, or you get it as part of your Amazon bundle if you add it in, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
We get that through Amazon, and really that is about it. We watch some stuff on YouTube. We don't subscribe to anything on YouTube, but
it's funny. I forgot about YouTube, but I do watch a lot of stuff on YouTube too, increasingly more. So you mentioned that I do CrossFit. That's my gym workout stuff. And there's a CrossFit channel that's a combination of entertaining and educational, where you learn about how your body works and how you're supposed to work out. There's a channel I subscribe to called Talks at Google, where people at Google are interviewing interesting people from the technology world. So I watched part of a show today where a guy was talking about artificial intelligence. Jerry, I'm spacing out on his last names. It's not right in front of me now, and names are hard. I'm old. But it was great. The Computer History Museum's got a channel, and they've got talks of people that have all kinds of back. I mean, there's tons of good content on YouTube if you dig around. I subscribe to a bunch of things. Some of them are crap. Some of them are amazing.
Yeah.
So it's, again, it's not like, it's not just that I'm settling for this mediocre content on these channels. These channels that I have selected and subscribed to have a lot of things I very much enjoy watching, I like, and I'm not lacking for anything where I'm seeking more, and
Right.
YouTube TV is not filling a hole for me.
No, and it's not for me either. I do not envision subscribing to this, but I think it goes back to what you said. If you're just getting ready to cord cut, this is probably a logical first step to determining what you care about, what you can't live without as far as programming. If you have shows that you follow that are on these networks and you watch them and you have a cable subscription, but you want to break away from your cable subscription, you can continue to watch your shows on this.
Well, there is, that is a downside of not subscribing to the network. There is some original content, like the USA channel has got Mr. Robot. Well, all right, it shows up on Amazon Prime eventually, But, I watched season 1 way after it was done. Season 2 is still a pay only. I got to binge Mr. Robot season 2 on a plane because I flew back to Germany, or I flew to Germany and back last week and had a lot of hours to kill. Watched Mr. Robot. Got through the first 9 hours of it. There's 3 hours left in season 2, and it's not on Amazon Prime, and I'm too cheap to pay for it, so I got to wait. So there are those downsides.
Yeah.
But again, it's not like if I couldn't see Mr. Robot, it's like it's not like I'm suffering.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Totally fine.
So. Well, all right. Let's we're looking forward in time at these the fancy way we're all consuming our entertainment now. Let's look back in time, kind of the Nokia 3310.
The invincible phone is back. So everyone knows what the Nokia 3310 is, even if you don't know that you know what the Nokia 3310 is. It's that universally recognizable Nokia phone, the brick that was just legendarily durable, had epic standby and talk time because it had a little liquid crystal display screen and all this.
And it was largely a phone, not a computer.
It was, mostly phone, not computer. Well, it is back, and it's all of those things, basically. The new Nokia 3310 is a true feature phone. It's not really a smartphone. It has an incredibly stripped-down OS. It has a small battery that lasts pretty much forever. It only costs $52. It will be in standby for a month before the battery dies, and you can talk on it for 22 hours on a full charge. It has a 240 by 320 pixel 2.7-inch color screen, so it is color.
Yeah.
It has a 1,200 milliamp hour battery.
It's hard to argue with that many pixels crammed into that small of a space. That's fine. It's not great. It's fine.
It's a feature phone.
Yeah.
It's fine for that. Yeah. It does ship with an updated color version of Snake.
Oh,
the original
you chase
game
around
on the
the
Nokia.
little. Yeah, it gets longer and longer.
And you try not to run into your own tail.
Right. Yeah.
It apparently does have a games and apps store, but that wasn't accessible during the review that I read, since the test device had no actual service.
Do we know what the service is? I mean, is it got an LTE chip in it? Presumably,
I would presume, but I don't know.
Although
for sure.
Actually, why would it have to have an LTE chip?
It doesn't really need
thinking
LTE.
about it. Who cares?
But, I mean, most modern networks are LTE, so who knows? But
I mean, it's not like it needs it because of all the data you're pulling in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So anyway,
I guess my ultimate question here is there actually still a market for this device?
Oh, boy.
And I almost think there is, but I'm not sure.
So it's tempting to me in a weird way.
Yeah.
Because I'm getting all sick of being
constantly
attracted by my phone. Oh, I gotta check the things, all the time, and always having a screen either in the form of a tablet or a computer that isn't booting yet. The saga of the iMac. It's trying to boot up in safe mode. I'm getting the spinny flower thing, not the beach ball, but the spinny flower thing is the best way I can describe it. It's
and
then it goes back to dark, and then it tries again, and it's not. I don't know what it's doing. Anyway, but just the thought of, if I want a phone that's just a phone, and
like an emergency phone,
and I don't, I don't want to worry about dropping the phone. If I drop my $52 phone and it breaks, it stings a whole lot less than dropping my $500 or
by the way,
$700
your
smartphone.
$52 one will not break because it's a Nokia 3310.
So in theory, right, it should be indestructible. So is there a market for the device? Between, it is becoming trendy amongst a certain set of people to do away with their smartphone and go backwards in time.
Yeah.
I get that. So that may be a market for it. I can see developing countries, certainly, where they're just looking to get service and it's not about the data. Yeah, it would work.
And T9 texting is resurrected here.
I could see sticking it in a car as an emergency phone that you don't really use other than, I want a phone in the car,
Which, by the way, you don't need cell service for.
What do you mean?
In the United States of America, all cell phones have to be able to complete a 911 call. whether you have service or not.
Okay. You mean you have to have tower service, but
You don't need
have to be a subscriber.
carrier. Correct.
Right. So
there may be a market.
I'm interested in the phone.
Yeah,
I mean,
seriously?
Yeah, I'm interested. I don't know that I have a use case for it because I have more phones than I need right now.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. Interesting phone to me.
Cool. Okay, well, on to a new segment that we sort of touched on the last time we had a full episode here, Privacy Watch. And this is specifically today detailing your rights when crossing the U.S. border. And Ethan, this is your bit, so I will hand it over to you.
So Privacy Watch is something that Eric and I have both talked about and become increasingly concerned with. We're both increasingly aware that as we use online services like Facebook and Google services and so on, we all of us as internet users and service users tend to agree to whatever it says because we want to use the service. No matter what the conditions are, we'll use it. And the conditions we very often are agreeing to allow our data to be used against us in some way. And by against us, I mean for purposes of marketing or for purposes of behavioral prediction that leads to marketing, etc. And we've talked about some of those things off and on in the show. So this is something you're going to hear from us more because we care and it's starting to bother us increasingly. Rights when crossing the U.S. border. So there's a link in the show notes, Ars Technica. There's a video they shot that goes back into February of 2017. What to do when border officials ask for your passwords. And so here's just a little excerpt from it that I thought was an interesting and important detail. So this is a quote from the article. According to UC Hastings, University of California, UC Hastings law professor Ahmed Kapoor, quote, your Fourth Amendment right to not be subjected to unreasonable search is suspended at the borders. Kapoor explained this gives border agents a lot of leeway in terms of how much they search and detain people crossing into the U.S. He talked to ours about recent cases where people have been asked to hand over their passwords to their phones and computers as well as other personal items. Did you catch that? Could you imagine going to the U.S. border and having the border guard ask you to hand over your phone? Oh, and by the way, it's got to be unlocked, and we want the passwords to your social media accounts that you can get at through the phone, etc., so they can start trolling through your stuff. You don't have the right to refuse them as such. You do, but you're. So I've read up on this a little bit, and it seems the consensus is no, you don't have to give them that information, but they do and probably will exercise their right to detain you. So therefore, yeah, we want your passwords to your accounts and give us your phone and your laptop, whatever. No. Okay, well,
have a seat right here.
Yeah, have a seat right here. We'll be right with you. And there's been stories of people that have been detained for many hours or longer, because of this sort of thing. So that, is that a breach of privacy? It is. However, because it's the border, you don't have that right as such. The unreasonable search right that results in an invasion of your privacy. Pretty interesting, pretty scary. We're living in a world that has become increasingly militarized and police state because of the war on terror. That is generally the backdrop against which these sorts of human rights abuses are exercised.
You know what's interesting about that bit there where he said your Fourth Amendment right to not be subject to unreasonable search is suspended? That's basically admitting that it's unreasonable search.
Yeah. No,
this is completely unreasonable, but we can do it.
Yeah, because they don't have to have a specific justification that would make it reasonable.
Right.
A reasonable search means you've got cause to suspect
Probable
that a person
cause,
is whatever, and you've obtained done the appropriate paperwork, obtained the appropriate permissions from local authorities to exercise the search. That all goes away, in a border context. So
that's infuriating.
Okay, so I yes, it's infuriating. At the same time, I sort of get it. It could be they can look at your background. You just visited a foreign country. Where did you visit? Oh, you were in one of the 7 listed countries that the U.S. government has identified as harboring terrorists, and they look cross-eyed at you and want justification for where you were and what you were doing, and they're gonna basically they're doing an audit is effectively what's happening. They're doing a social media audit to see what you've been talking about, who you've been chatting with, and so on. It's also interesting to me the fact that they want your passwords, because it kind of says, well, they don't have easy access to your stuff without that information.
So we'd really appreciate it if we could have easy access.
Yes. Meaning the whole password stuff, there must be something to it, even though we've heard, we know as a society that there are government backdoors that are baked into certain softwares and social networks.
Yeah,
and so on.
but Customs and Immigration is not the NSA. So, they don't have the vast resources on tap necessarily. They have to go through channels
and have that moment in time when you're standing there to deny you access to the country, deny you entrance to the country, which if you're a U.S. citizen and you're trying to get back into America, they got to have a pretty freaking good reason to deny you access. It is your right as a U.S. citizen to be in the country. So, it gets hard. They're taking a moment in time, taking an opportunity while you've been caught in the funnel, so to speak, to take action against you. So I don't like the police state, man. And it's not like I'm not one of these dudes from the 60s going, cops are pigs, man. It's not like that at all. It's just technology has allowed us to really cross some lines
and to blur others.
And the morality of it all is getting fuzzy. Again, human rights abuse is not too strong of a word here. It's not exactly like people are being kidnapped in the middle of the night and imprisoned against their will, and it's hush hush and no one knows. It's not that, but you can see how we get there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's not Gestapo stuff, but it's...
Well, there's another story I didn't call out this week, but there was a guy who got raided because of some things he was talking about on his social media.
I read that as well.
That he got caught, and that looked legit, like he was actually someone who should have been caught, and it's kind of a good thing. He was, people were going to die if he had proceeded, but how they got his information and read it, I've forgotten the details, but I remember going,
Food for thought. Well, on to content I like, and Ethan, you found City in the Sky. What is this?
So we were talking about streaming channels before. PBS has just got nuggets. If you dig through the library, there's a lot of stuff in the PBS library, and a lot of it's kind of like, it's amateur hour, so cute. This was awesome. City in the Sky is a 3-part series about the world of airplane manufacturing, airplane refitting, airplane reclaiming. In other words, what happens when an airplane's no longer in service. Jet engine manufacturing and maintenance. Things like you can't tear the engine down, so how do you check it? There was a microfracture that was detected by a sensor on one of the turbine fins. Oh, okay, I'll use my light scope to go deep into the engine where the imperfection was detected, and use a machining tool to lathe the edge and get it right back perfect again, so that it's perfectly in balance, and that little teeny imperfection in the edge of the turbine wing doesn't become a fracture that potentially could detonate the engine. These are the sorts of things that they cover on this 3-part series. They talk about airports and a lot of logistics, how jet fuel gets distributed. They actually talk about in Europe how jet fuel is refined and then distributed to a number of airports around the continent. Luggage management, how your luggage is tagged and what happens to it if it doesn't make its flight, and on and on. Navigation, how you're actually flying through the sky, the different systems that are in use to fly that plane around the world, which is a combination of old world radio stuff and new world GPS stuff. Air traffic control, their role, what they do, how it works, and meal prep, how meals are prepared, mass produced, but done in kitchens with chefs and then packaged to be put on planes. Etc. So it's all this nerdy stuff crammed into 3 hours, and it could have been nerdier, honestly, because they just it was a 3 1-hour episodes. They had to leave stuff out, but if you've ever been on a plane, or if you're just fascinated by travel and transportation systems, just awesome. You just sit there, nerd out. It was just great. Just really cool stuff and well shot, HD and beautiful. And they found a lot of interesting people at these different places to interview. For example, they talked to some folks at one of the most remote airports in the world in Siberia. How, because it is so cold there, how they deal with the plane when it touches down. They have to essentially put the plane on life support so that they can deplane people, do the maintenance on the plane, put people back on the plane, and put the thing back in the air before it freezes solid.
Wow.
They have to keep hot air going to it. They have blankets they put on the tires. They have this whole process. The plane lands and parks, and a whole team runs out to hook the plane up and do all the things they need to do to the plane to keep it alive before it goes back airborne again.
Look, I know I live in the frozen north.
Yeah.
But there are
like
just
these
places
guys.
where, oh man, why? Why do you live there?
They talked to some people of all places, the international runway in Bangor, Maine, because it is one of the few East Coast airport, or one of the first East Coast airports you can land at if you're having fuel problems. And I guess this happens occasionally coming back from Europe to the North American continent. Planes can run into strong headwinds and burn more fuel than they expected. And Bangor, Maine, which is, I've been there, nothing in Bangor, I tell you.
No. And it's up there.
It's way up there in central Maine, yeah. Kind of coastal, but yeah, because of where it is and the length of the runway, you can put a big plane down and solve your fuel crisis.
So you can land a 747 or
yeah,
777
exactly,
or whatever. Yeah,
exactly, yeah. So anyway, it's all these bits and pieces from all over the world, different airports, different teams of people, different people in charge of these various systems, how these planes are manufactured and put together, why they still use rivets, for example. The wiring systems that goes into these planes and on it goes. It's just 3 hours of nerdery. And like I said, it could have even been nerdier, but everything they gave you was gold. There was just no wasted time.
All right. Now
So
I have
City
to check
in the
that
Sky.
out. City in the Sky.
City in the Sky is a link to pbs.org/show/city-sky. That's well worth your time. And just anecdotally, Eric, I'll mention I also saw Logan, the X-Men movie. And I don't want to give away any spoilers. If you haven't seen it, I will just say the Rotten Tomatoes score was 93 on this movie. And yup, I finished watching the movie and I was like a little kid at an amusement park who wanted to get right back in line after getting off the ride. It was so good. And you don't need to be a huge X-Men fan to enjoy it or appreciate it. It was just extremely well done. Not for the kiddos. It's a violent movie. There's swearing in it, etc. It is rated R, and it definitely earns the R rating. But what a film! If you're a Marvel fan at all, you will not be sorry when you go to see Logan.
I haven't seen it yet, and Wolverine is my favorite superhero. So I definitely need to go out and see it.
I'm happy to go see it again. Maybe we can catch it together.
Yeah,
that would be kind of awesome. Eric, did you learn anything today?
I did. I learned that water is used in rice fields to prevent weeds. Rice doesn't actually need that much water, but since it can thrive in such conditions, whereas the weeds cannot, it is a natural protection against said weeds.
That is awesome. I didn't know that. I assumed they needed the water. I mean,
you see the rice paddies and people wading in the water. It's just it's weed control.
I had no idea.
Yeah. So super cool. Did you learn anything today?
Well, I learned something you taught me just before the show, which is this. If a pregnant mother suffers organ damage during the pregnancy, the fetus can send stem cells to help repair the damage, which is so cool.
Yeah.
That is just awesome.
Yeah.
That is really cool stuff.
It's highly conditional, but it does happen from time to time, yep. And that brings us to the end of this episode of Citizens of Tech. Once again, you can visit citizensoftech.com to check out all our show notes, listen to back episodes. Hey, you can also subscribe on iTunes and Google Play. We're on Stitcher. We're just all over the place. Don't forget that if you want to support the show, you can do so via patreon.com. Or you can go to citizensoftech.com/Amazon and buy through our Amazon affiliate link. If you would take the time to visit the Citizens of Tech subreddit and upvote or downvote content that you find interesting or not so interesting, that does help us frame out the show for next week, and we would appreciate that. If you feel inclined to leave a review for us on iTunes or wherever else you might be able to. We would enjoy that as well. Thank you very much for listening. And until next time, have a great week.